Welcome, everyone, to What the Force. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host, and my co-host for this show is Alex Kane.
Hey, thanks for having me.
This is Calling on Kenobi, our meta-mythic deep dive into the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. Just a reminder to like and subscribe, and if you're on YouTube, hit that little bell notification button so you can see all of the fun stuff we're going to be dropping for Obi-Wan Kenobi, as well as all of the other episodes around Celebration and, you know, just all of my stuff in general. It really, really helps you stay on top of all of the fun things that I am doing, as well as leaving a review on any of your podcaster apps of choice, especially if you love this show. Really, really helps other people find it. So just as a reminder to do that. I have the roughest voice in existence right now, so I apologize in advance if it gives out. But I have been spending and recording. I'm recording this on the Sunday night of Celebration. Everything is done. And there was a lot of Kenobi at Celebration. So I wanted to just briefly talk about that before we get into kind of the episodes for the premiere and everything that happened in those, as well as like everything around them. So Alex, you were watching from home. What did you think of everything going on and all the news coming out?
Yeah, it's been a really good, just kind of energy, for lack of a better way to put it. I hyped myself up for this show pretty well as we got close to it because, Revenge of the Sith was my sort of like favorite era of being a Star Wars fan. It was sort of like 02 to 05. And yeah, I don't know, the vibes coming out of like the Celebration tweets, and just, even though everything hasn't been live streamed and people are sort of bummed about that, I think that the Twitter coverage from, people like you and like, Sky Talkers and Star Wars Explained, like all the people who are kind of like really just tweeting everything. It's been really fun to just kind of, soak that in, even though I wasn't there. It's been, it feels like the vibes are good, with some caveats, but it's a lot of love, which is nice to see.
Started out, I would actually say a little rough because the showcase, although is streamed to the other stages. This was a virtual panel, so you had to be lucky to get in or wait in line and not have a chance to get in potentially, right? Was not even streamed internally to the Star Wars stage. So usually the first panel of Celebration is something that everybody wants to share in. And any of the major ones, they really want to share. And I understand keeping kind of the exclusive clips so they can control what gets out there on the internet. They had night vision goggles to make sure people weren't recording. It was serious. I know some of the clips still ended up out there because security guards can only do so much. But the first panel of the day really bummed out a lot of people who just luck of the draw weren't able to get in there, and so that wasn't streamed to the Star Wars show stage. Also bummed out a lot of people at home who were looking to celebrate with things. But they did release the trailers, at least for Andor, online. I think, did they release the Willow one too?
Yeah, they did tweet that out.
And of course they talked about Indiana Jones and when that was going to be coming out and stuff like that. It was a Lucasfilm showcase. There was actually very little Star Wars, which is interesting. And then we were invited back to watch the show in the evening. So that also and really we saw it and then it immediately dropped on Disney Plus. So it wasn't like there was time for anyone to be spoiled or anything like that, which is kind of cool that they were able to do that. I was in the room. I was in the big Celebration room to watch the Kenobi release, and the energy was palpable, exciting. We were with cast and crew. It was a red carpet event, and I gotta say, I love that aspect of it. And when the show was done, the cast and, Deborah Chow came out on stage, and so did the little actress that played Leia. And she
Nice.
came in and hugged Ewan.
Amazing.
Which killed me. Like, I died. She is wonderful. I will protect her with everything I have in me. Anyone that badmouths her does not deserve Star Wars.
She's so good.
She's so good.
Great.
She's really perfect. She's not even like, she is young Leia. That is, it's so funny because like Kathleen was like, we don't want to recast people.
Yeah.
And then they recast like for a younger version of Leia, obviously. It's really, really funny. I'm just in love with all the coverage. Ewan and Hayden had a lot of love the whole weekend. Ewan said he would definitely come back whenever they wanted him back because of how appreciative like everyone was of him. I just don't think that he realized that there were fans out there. And it's a really just good reminder that there are some loud people on the internet that are full of hate, and like to not listen to them.
Yeah.
Right. Anyways, so that was Celebration, and it was amazing. It's always chaos, though. I should probably say that. Like, it's always chaos. It's always like, what is going on? Where am I going? And you're always like exhausted at the end of every single day, but it's like a good exhausted. I have to say, what's really interesting for me personally, because I just finished rewatching before we're going to be recording here. I saw it in the Celebration stage, so there was no like recap.
Oh, yeah.
And I got to see this recap, and I'm like, oh my God, it's Obi-Wan Kenobi's life story and Anakin's life story from Obi-Wan's perspective. It's like a Legends episode from Marvel.
Yeah. Yeah, that was so good. It didn't
also
have any
Padme was in
animation,
there.
But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Padme was also in there.
That was really well done.
This sort of just reminded me of a Joey Salloway quote, which I'm going to be digging into a lot of psychology right now. So like during the course of our episode and what we're going to be digging into, hero's journey, obviously, because it's all this. It's like I was like, I'm going to do a panel on Kenobi's hero's journey, but really you can just watch the show and listen to this. This is our episode deep dive, and you'll get the hero's journey out of it. Yeah. But art is the propaganda of the self, right? It is how we tell others what our lived in experience is and how we can give ourselves to others in a way that they can truthfully understand ourselves or our internals. And in my opinion, the feeling gaze and feminine gaze that we get in this show is creating an anti-patriarchal message that I really hope helps some people find their way out of patriarchal dominator culture.
It's great. It's great. I mean, you've got a good avatar for that in young Leia, for sure. And the way that she gets treated by the various characters.
I mean, for Kenobi himself.
Well, okay. Yeah. And him growing, yeah.
Because, no, it's important for us to acknowledge that it's not just women who suffer from the patriarchal culture that we exist in. It's also men, right? Like, they're mutilated by the need to cut off from their emotions, to not process the things that have happened to them.
Yeah.
And to understand that. And Kenobi is entirely set up to help Obi-Wan Kenobi and hopefully many of the audience members, give them a roadmap to the next stage of processing all of their baggage or shadows or the things that they haven't handled yet. Yeah.
It's nice that they start off with him as just sort of a haunted man who is, really lost, and he's going through it. So they're digging in there for sure.
So there's a couple of things I want to talk about in the show. Primarily, we have to view, I'm going to go through a few things and then we can dig into the show, but I think it's really, really important to call these out at the top so that when I bring them up later on, I don't have to like go into them when they happen. But when we view this story, there's going to be things that are going to be happening in the story that psychologically are projections of what is going on inside of Obi-Wan Kenobi. The conflicts that he is facing are archetypically happening internally in him and are reflected out there in the adventure that he is facing. So that's just like a really important lens to view the story in addition to the action and adventure that is happening to him and Leia and whoever else he happens to meet along the way. The other thing to keep in mind is that you go on many journeys throughout your life, many heroes' journeys throughout your life, and sometimes you fail at them. Sometimes you never make it past the first threshold. Sometimes you have to go again, right? Or you make a whole journey and then you reach a different phase of your life and you need to go again. And sometimes there are cycles or journeys within journeys. So you're stuck at a particular part in the journey and you almost have to go on a little mini journey to get through it, right? And so Kenobi as a show itself will fit within the archetypical or the hero's journey, I suspect, based on what we're seeing. And then it will fit into Kenobi's larger hero's journey that we experience throughout the saga and throughout the timeline of Star Wars. Another thing to keep in mind, and you can go ahead and find my episode on triangles and threes, but Star Wars presents itself externally to our audience as based in binaries. That you're good or you're bad. You're dark side or you're light. You're on the Rebels or you're on the Imperials. You're a Jedi or you're a Sith. But Star Wars is actually about threes. And I'm going to go into that when we actually get to some of the quotes that are in the episode. But I want you to pay attention to the numbers of threes and triangles we see in the show. Okay? And then absolutely all the TLJ vibes that we get / sequel trilogy.
Yes.
Like feelings is really, really important too. Do you have any pre-show thoughts?
Just that, I really felt that this was a nice kind of way to revisit, the prequels in sort of a kind of a modern context. It's sort of like, how do we synthesize the prequels with The Last Jedi, as you said, even Rise of Skywalker and all that other stuff, as well as like the world we live in and sort of push things forward. The thing that I kept thinking of, one of the things that really made me a fan of, your podcast back in the day, was that Ken Liu episode where, you guys talked about myth making and to keep a myth alive and to retell it is really to rewrite it and reinterpret it. And it's, you kind of
tell it for a new generation.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of people, myself included, going into the show, it's like, well, you do have to rewrite a little bit of the canon of like A New Hope to kind of do some of the things that they're doing here or they seem to be doing. And I was perfectly okay with that as long as it was good and worthy of retelling the myth in that way. And I think that's really fascinating that they've kind of had the guts to say, okay, what is either, maybe not necessarily wrong, but we're going to kind of complicate and renew what you think you understand about these beloved characters from, 45 years ago. And it takes guts to do what they've done here. And I am fully embracing it.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to sort of the concept of lenses. And like we ourselves are very unreliable narrators of our own lives.
Yeah.
And we're very unreliable understanders of media that we watched when we were maybe very young.
Yeah.
Right? And then through the lens of our adulthood, we almost need to revisit it with new eyes. And sometimes things make sense, right? And you have to give yourself a chance to revisit it. Like, you may not understand what Luke went through to get to The Last Jedi now, whatever age you are. But then, you know, you give yourself some time and some wisdom and some bad experiences where you ended up at your lowest point, and you can identify with that. Again, art is the propaganda of the self, right? It's a way for us to tell our internal selves to a broader audience. And I really, really think that continuing this story, as much as I was like, why do we need this? Like, oh God, don't listen to Marie Claire a year ago where I was like, why do we need this show? I don't understand it. But the focus on the feelings, like you get the feels, like the emotions of Obi-Wan Kenobi are prioritized, right? It comes from deep inside. We can tell this storytelling is coming from a deep place inside of the storytellers. They want us to feel and empathize with Obi-Wan and possibly Anakin as well, right? We want to feel and we want to understand where these characters are coming from. And that's like step one in feminine or other gaze, not masculine gaze. Step one. And we're getting it. We're absolutely getting it. The focus on Obi-Wan Kenobi's face, especially when he found out that Anakin Vader was still alive, exactly gave us the space to breathe with him and experience it.
Yeah. Yep.
That is entirely Deborah Chow's ability to direct and tell the camera, we need to feel this moment. And we're feeling him. Like, Ewan's face is so expressive in this that we're feeling all of the things he is feeling. Yeah. It's so good.
Yep.
So, like, kudos already. I am sold. I am in. This is everything I ever wanted. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, lots of hyperbolic feelings on my end too, where I'm just like, man, I hope they keep this up because it's just, yeah, everything I've wanted from Star Wars, you know, ever really. It's so good.
So we start out with Order 66. Okay, we're gonna start out with the tragedy.
Yeah, it's a rough place to start, right? You've got, you know, this sort of. Anakin Skywalker is the center of this saga, and sort of his fall from grace involves helping a tyrant take power over the entire galaxy, and then also being like, you know, the teacher, you know, basically taking down this institution of students that worship him, right? And you know, he was sort of the best of them. Him and Obi-Wan were sort of the best of the Jedi. And here you know, you have this moment where it all comes crashing down out of selfishness. Basically, it's rough. It's sort of the dark heart of that era of Star Wars. You know, arguably all of Star Wars, like where George was coming from. But yeah, I thought it was tastefully done. And it sort of foreshadows some of the mystery to come, I think, right? With
yeah.
I don't know how far we want to jump ahead, but I think that they're setting up some interesting puzzle pieces with Reva's obsession with Kenobi.
Yeah, I mean, there's one kid that is one youngling who is leading the rest, and I feel like this is giving us a puzzle piece on who Riva might have been, how she knows what she knows, where she's coming from. I feel like that's a pretty common speculation at this point. I don't need to go into it too much. I just want the story to tell me what it's going to tell me, and I'll try to tell you what it might mean. But I think for me, the important thing in this moment is that this represents the absolute failure of Obi-Wan Kenobi. and how much pain and destruction and everything like that. And again, this entire show is through his lens. So I'm saying it failure for him. Of course, there was other people that failed Anakin and failed the galaxy, etc. But we have to view things from Kenobi's lens because that is who the show is about. And it's really important because in his overall journey, he is at the catabasis step. So if you look at the cycle or the circle, he is at the lowest point. This is basically the place by which, sometimes it's called the belly of the whale. Sometimes it is so you're just past the threshold, which is exactly what happened to Obi-Wan. He was forced into the unknown, a world without the institutions that have protected him his entire life. And he is in a stage of spiritual aridity or death. He is in an abyss. Literally, he is on Tatooine, which shows to us as an abyss, as a desert. He is stripped bare of everything in him.
Yeah. I literally had in my notes the belly of the whale that, we see that giant fish or stingray-like skeleton dead in the desert. So you have Obi-Wan as like this literal fish out of water who is a man defined by his institution, the ultimate Jedi, Matthew Stover called him, and the Jedi are no more. So he's literally just, he goes from being in the belly of the whale to the whale is dead and it's just lying out there in the desert.
Yeah. And that's the lowest point. Like he's gone through the belly of the whale into this like abyss. He has nothing, right? Mm-hmm. I want to go into that manta ray, sand manta ray, whatever it is, in a second. But let's talk about the Inquisitors.
Yes. We sort of start with the Grand Inquisitor. He sort of takes the stage first, right? As with his big monologue, he
comes down the ship, which looks like Vader's, but bigger with a triangle on top. There's a triangle on top. There's a pyramid. Yeah. Okay, that's the first of our triangles. We have 3 Inquisitors that come down the stairs. The other 3 that we get right away, and a third 3 we get right away. Third sister.
Yeah.
So why? Maybe I should save till later why 3s are important. How long should I wait until I tell you why 3s are important?
Well, I mean,
later. I'll tell you later. It's good.
Yeah, sure.
So 3s, just like be paying attention when you're watching this show because it's telling you something that Joseph Campbell always talks about. Not in the hero's journey, in the mythologies. So reading past The Hero with 1,000 Faces or The Adventurer's Journey is really, really important to understand what is going on here. Yep. Nice. I really love the idea that they say that the Jedi hunt themselves.
Yes. Their compassion leaves a trail, and so they hunt themselves. Yeah, the Jedi hunt themselves is just an interesting, juicy line.
Oh, so good. Why do you think the Jedi hunt themselves?
I think that, through the lens of Kenobi as a character, the Jedi, the Jedi Temple is the Emperor's palace now at this point, right? Like it's, these are people without a home, without a cause, without a purpose. They've gone from being like the heroes of myth and legends to being, their existence is, basically punishable by execution. So, it's either hide and sort of work this, I think that they he says they can't help but be heroic in the face of, the Empire is by definition doing things that a Jedi is not gonna let slide.
I love where you're going, but what you said is their compassion leaves a trail. Why does it leave a trail? Well, because compassion and love produces more compassion and love. Whereas what like the dark side and the Empire do is destruction and hurting people and pain. And you don't get it. It's so revolutionary and hopeful to have love in a destructive world like that it's like recognizable, and it creates more of it. It creates more love. Destruction creates more destruction. More love creates more love. It's a really simple Star Wars message, and it's done with this simple line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's so cool.
It's one of those great moments where sometimes the villains are the ones telling the truth because they sort of see everything but themselves, right? They sort of they have this clarity, you know, like Hannibal Lecter, right? Like he understands everybody in the room better than they understand themselves, but then, you know, he's not going to really like take a look at himself, you know, for more than, you know, but I think that's a fun way for the Grand Inquisitor to be characterized here as kind of the, you know, he's not particularly driven the way that Riva is. He's just kind of like, he's just kind of like, we got a job to do. This is kind of business as usual, nothing new. Like, let's just get this over with, you know, like, let's make this as painless and quick as possible.
But Riva herself this is personal.
Yeah, she's a loose cannon with a like total agenda of her own. Like, she has no interest in like playing by the boss's rules, or you get the sense that maybe there's some history between her and Vader where she might be scared if she's in the room with him, but like she doesn't really care what, you know, she's wearing that uniform out of necessity more than like any kind of loyalty, I feel like, right? Like she just kind of she wants Kenobi for some reason.
Yeah. Do you want to hear what my speculation is about her?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, we hear this later on that she's from the gutter and she is incredibly powerful. Who does that remind you of?
Oh, Anakin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like Anakin found her. So like Vader found her somewhere and sees himself in her. Okay. And also she might blame Kenobi for what happened, or has been told that Kenobi caused things.
Oh, yeah.
And so this is the obsession and the link as the third piece in the Kenobi, Anakin, Riva triangle.
Interesting. Yeah, she's sort of the future. If they're sort of like the failures of the past, right? So she's kind of like this dark times period, kind of sifting through the rubble.
And like a victim of what has happened in so many ways, and like could have good reason to have beefs with both of them. And it's sort of like the tie between the two. She's the link between the two in a third. She's the third thing that's going to stabilize this geometric shape between the two of them until they have a chance to have it out a little bit.
Yeah, you're right. Like my rewatch before we recorded this, it's like the thing that stuck out to me was like, he's been looking for you for a long time, Kenobi, and kind of like, so you get the sense that Vader confides in her maybe. And from the comics, like the Charles Soule comics and stuff, we kind of get the sense that maybe Vader, you know, the Inquisitors aren't like his, you know, idea. They're just kind of like a necessary
saddled
evil.
On him.
You know, he tolerates the Inquisitors.
Yeah. But like I like the idea that like the rest of the Inquisitors are from Palpatine and like Riva is Vader's.
Yeah. Okay. That does feel right, doesn't it? Like they're all sort of one unit, but she is completely, you know, Sung Kang is kind of like the guy who, what is that? The fifth brother? Is that his name? The fifth brother. You know, he's like just totally annoyed with her because she's just kind of like creating all this like friction on the team and just sort of running off. And it's a lot of fun actually. That kind of conflict between them.
let's get to the sand manta ray. And you brought up the idea of like the belly of the whale, and that they're cutting it up. And actually, there's a lot of psychology behind torment of the flesh when you're in the belly of the whale, or when you have to get out of it. So like you have to sacrifice, you have to cut off a piece of yourself to get out of the whale. You have to cut out the whale. You have to it's metaphorically like a rebirth situation that you're going through. You're being reborn. So it's very hard, and it's very primal. And the idea that you're like, in some ways, like you sometimes you're almost digested and like spit out the other side too. There's a Hercules' tale where Poseidon is angry at Troy, and so the king of Troy ties his daughter to the sea rocks to sacrifice her to Poseidon to appease him. But Hercules, so she's swallowed is swallowed, and Hercules goes and is swallowed completely and digested, but manages to kill the beast by hacking his way out the other side. This is not pretty work, and absolutely reminded me of him cutting up the sand manta ray sushi. It made me want like salmon sashimi or something.
Yeah.
But he's like cutting up the pieces of this sand fish.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about how lucky his EOP mount, like he gets like a nice big fat cut of salmon like every day. Like after, Ben comes home from work and spoils his dog because his dog is kind of all he has, or his horse, or whatever you want to call it. But I love that. Great touch there. Yeah, like the whale thing, the Leviathan or skeleton or whatever you want to call it. Like it's like just one of my favorite images in the whole thing, and something I'll be thinking about for a long time. I think that Obi-Wan was a character who, like, as much as I love him and he's kind of like my fave of the prequel trilogy, he's sort of, he was a very proper guy who served sort of the upper class. In the Phantom Menace,
he has a British accent, which we associate, with la-di-da, like.
I always think of where he started. He started with Qui-Gon being the sort of compassionate, humble master, and Obi-Wan's like, why do I sense we picked up another pathetic life form? And he's kind of just like disgusted by like Jar Jar and Anakin and all these characters. And, here we have him kind of as a pathetic life form who's just sort of, just like he's the normal working class, people like me, the people of the galaxy who are just, they're getting by, and I think that's really beautiful to see. Rey's introduction in The Force Awakens, one of my favorite character moments, and people see a lot of parallels there. He's kind of doing the same stuff, and I think it's really important.
It's the daily drudgery, right? You need something like, because you get into these cycles, right? You get into these like, it feels like everything is the same every single day. Everything is the same, and like this is a really great lens and seed to think about yourself as well. That like when adventure calls, it's going to be hard to break you out of these cycles that you're in enough to experience a transformational journey.
Like, I can't go to Celebration and get on an airplane. I've got work to do and look at my kids. Yeah, no, it's easy to kind of fall into the routine and be like, this is my purpose here, this meat plant, in this small little town in the middle of nowhere. But part of him, just the fact that he gets Luke that little toy, which we'll talk about more later, like there's some part of him that yearns for that adventure, I think, right?
And he wants to prep Luke for the adventure and not allow himself to continue on his own journey.
Yeah.
Which is it's so us as adults, right? Like, we're like, no, we're grown-ups. We're not allowed to have growth any longer.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. We have to work. We have to do, but adventure can come in exploration of the internal, right? Growth can come exploration of the internal or the external. They're interconnected in ourselves. I did want to bring up one sort of metaphor and symbol that is being used by the manta ray butcher shop, which is that, or the manta ray sashimi butcher shop, which is that he himself, every day that he is doing this and denying aspects of himself, is cutting a piece of himself off, right? He is getting further away from his true whole self. And like, we do that to ourselves, right? We do that metaphorically, of course. We see it visually on the screen. But again, like I said, we're going to be seeing things that are reflected externally as symbols. And that's why it feels like TLJ. Like, I can't press this enough. Can't press this button enough. This is why it feels like TLJ, because TLJ is incredibly symbolic. And like, we get these symbols and they're repeated. I also want to point out, this is one of 3 times he goes to work.
Yeah. Interesting.
The first time.
Yeah.
He comes home from work, he feeds his mount, and then he goes into his cave-like home, which again is a womb, because he is prepping himself for rebirth. He is prepping for the next stage of his journey. He is ready to, he's just been gestating in the belly of the whale, or wherever he is, or in the underworld, in a place that he is stuck, right? He is stuck, and he's in this location. And there's going to be constant reminders of who he is and what he wants out there. So the Jawa is there. There's a little R2 unit like popping up out of the water or out of the sand to like tell him it's okay. The Jawa first comment is, "I could smell you from Anchorhead." So we're talking death, like the symbol of spiritual death hangs heavy over Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the Jawa Tika.
Tika,
such a great little choice. The Jawas are always a quick way to my heart. And like, again, Obi-Wan was not always the type that would be befriending Jawas and droids. You know, this is sort of, he's been humbled. This is growth. I just really appreciated this little moment. It was very good. I also, aside from the self and whatever it's saying about, Deborah Chow or Lucasfilm or whoever, I also saw a George parallel.
Okay.
Which is that, the prequels are sort of George's opus. They're sort of like his legacy, I thought that it was interesting that Lucas, he was famously sort of traumatized and hospitalized making the original Star Wars. I think he suffered like basically a nervous breakdown. And then he sort of, after that, he began hiring other directors to act as his proxies, carrying out his vision.
Yeah.
And then... So by the time of The Phantom Menace, he tried to get Ron Howard. Basically, he tried to pawn the prequels off on like Ron Howard or somebody that he could really trust to just sort of do the work for him. And so when Obi-Wan tells Bail Organa, find some other hero to save Leia, I'm not the man you remember. That feels so like George, mid-90s, like, being the only man for the job, essentially. But like from his point of view, maybe he just wanted the business aspect of like, oh, I see all this cool like special effects potential and the business potential, keep ILM employed, push the industry forward a little bit. But like it must have taken a lot of strength and courage and introspection to go from like basically not directing movies for like a long time to like, I guess I'm going to do these 3 movies for the next 10 years. That must have been an incredible feat of going into the belly of the whale. And I see that.
You hear that a lot with creators, right? Or people that are like, why won't anyone else make this X, right? Like I was that way. Why won't anyone talk about Star Wars the way I want Star Wars? I want to listen to that podcast.
Yeah.
I want to read that, like I want somebody else to talk about Star Wars the way I talk about Star Wars, but nobody else will do the thing that is deep inside of you. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yep.
Art is propaganda of the self. This podcast is me in audio form. Right? Like, no, seriously. And Kenobi, like, this is a reflection of the fact that nobody else can take this journey for him. That's what it's saying symbolically and like in the subtext, right? Nobody else can take this journey. And we get his 3 denials of the call, like doubting Thomas from a biblical perspective, who denies Jesus, right? Like we get 3 denials of the call before he has to accept, because he sees the consequences. He sees the importance. He's given no choice but to accept, because he is, like you said, the only one. And there's a reason he's the only one. But I do want to talk briefly about that the Jawa bringing the toy and the processor is also another metaphor for Obi-Wan being stripped away. Like he's stripped down to his bones and he's trying to retain like the last vestiges of who he is. And he makes this thing like you could have cleaned it before returning it. Well, cleaning is extra. The Jawa tells him. And that's saying that like you have to do work to come back transformed. Kenobi. Ben, you have to do work to come back transformed, to come back different, to dust off all the shadow, to dust off all the pain that you've experienced. And he's stuck in this what feels like a maze, right? It's ruminating. He's stuck in these circles of thought that he cannot get over, and this endless cycle of, spiritual aridity. It is the equivalent is, of course, wandering in the desert for 40 days that Jesus does. I don't mean to put all the Christian stuff, but I mean, that's the one that's most familiar to a lot of people. But again, like, there are other versions of this out there. It's just, he is in this rumination period where he hasn't quite gotten out of what he needs, right? Like he hasn't pushed himself beyond where he needs to go. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he is also being tortured in that because he is experiencing dreams. And that's the next thing that happens. What did you think of the dream sequence?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's the one that's just imagery from like Revenge of the Sith, basically.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
He's very haunted.
No. There's more.
I'm trying to remember. Does he dream Phantom Menace stuff too, or?
He does, yeah. Okay. So it starts out with lava and Anakin trying to kill him, and then him saying, "You were my brother." And then we get Phantom Menace. We get him holding Qui-Gon saying, "Promise me you'll train the boy."
Yeah.
We hear Padme say, "Obi-Wan." And then we get Yoda, "Only pain you will find."
Yeah.
And then we get the rest of Padme's line as she's about to die. "There's still good in him. I know there is." Obi-Wan yelling, "You were the chosen one." We see Luke or Leia haven't checked a baby. It would be dope if it was Leia. "I hate you." Anakin screaming at Obi-Wan, and then burning Anakin, and then we get child Anakin in the starfighter, or Starfighter Anakin. So like Obi-Wan wasn't there for that, but he was a child, right? Like, so there's a lot going on with this. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, the image that we see of Luke in this show so far is like very much looks like Anakin as he was when Obi-Wan
at that age?
first met him. Yeah. You know, he looks like he's like pod racing almost. He's got goggles on like Anakin. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot that kind of happens that sort of wakes Obi-Wan out of his directionlessness. You know, he's got the bail on the one hand, but a lot of it I think has to do with Luke and also Benny Safdie's character, this sort of Jedi who's not very good at hiding. Which I watched.
This is way before this. This is just the dream that he has. So to me, like, he doesn't know that the Jedi is like looking out for him.
Right. Yeah.
Right. This is just immediately after that. And okay, so he's ruminating. Obviously, he's reliving the past. He's like stuck in PTSD or in a sense of being betrayed by his brother, failure, all of that, right? Mm-hmm. There's this really important point that's being made that he ends on child Anakin that he knew when he met him, right? Like, that's the age he met him. That everybody is a baby. Everybody was once a baby. And it's really important because it's telling us, how did this person's life go wrong? Mm-hmm. It was really important for me to hear Padme in that too. I also want to shout out to Rian Johnson for bringing flashbacks into Star Wars officially in live action, and like they're brilliant. They're super usable. They have access to all of this footage. They can just bring it in, and like it represents exactly what we need.
Yeah.
But he wakes up and he calls out for Obi-Wan. Or sorry, he wakes up and he calls out for Qui-Gon, and Qui-Gon doesn't answer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I thought also it's meaningful that he hasn't yet built that house that he famously has in like A New Hope and like any other like sort of expanded universe story ever. He's got that little house and like he doesn't
have his home yet. Yeah.
But yeah, calling out to Qui-Gon and there being no answer. Again, you're talking about like Christianity. That's a very sort of like praying God saying like, I'm not here just yet sort of thing. It's really interesting. And of course it leads you to automatically assume like, okay, so we're going to hear from Qui-Gon before this is all said and done.
Absolutely. They paid Liam Neeson enough to record like lines or show up on a blue screen.
Something.
Absolutely. By the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then he goes and he's like, I got to see Luke. I got to remember why I'm doing this, why I'm here. So he goes and like stalks him from afar off in the rocks and uses the little like the goggles or the binoculars, Star Wars binoculars, which I would totally buy because I'm a sucker for that sort of thing. Star Wars binoculars, get them out there, Lucasfilm. Owen is shouting for Luke. And to me, this is foreshadowing for Leia going missing.
Yeah.
This is the Force telling Obi-Wan that Leia is about to go missing and go on an adventure.
Yeah, Beru comes out and tries to assist Owen, like, oh, I think maybe he went over, wherever she says, and then Luke is like on top of the house at that point, I think.
Yeah.
Like
riding it like a speeder or like a ship or whatever. Like he wants to have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he brings the toy and then runs into Nari on the way back.
That's the Benny Safdie Jedi character. Yeah.
Yeah, the Jedi.
He's great. You see his face, and he's got such a great face as an actor. Like, you immediately, sort of like a Harry Dean Stanton, or, you just immediately care what happens to him. You just like, oh, I sure hope nothing bad happens to this guy, and then of course, yeah, but good bit of casting there. He's great.
And I count this as the first denial of the call for him because it's like the Force is saying like, Obi-Wan, the rest of the universe needs you and you have to go on a transformational experience to get your groove back. He calls on Kenobi and Kenobi's like, nah, I'm not that dude anymore.
Yeah.
The time for the Jedi is over. Wow.
And it has some severe consequences too. It's not like, that's not inconsequential, unfortunately for him. But, it's another kind of religious thing to deny, who and what you are, right? Like that's a meaningful choice, I think, of like the movie, Silence, that Scorsese did, it's like to hide your religion, your beliefs is sort of, it's like this awful curse, right? I don't know.
Well, in the end, the journey that we go on is a quest to understand ourselves. And by denying the call and digging it in and not being willing to do the work to go and truthfully understand ourselves, it's sometimes because it's hard. It's work to do this. Like, we're afraid, right? We feel like it's not going to make a difference. Like, that's where Kenobi's at. Like, he feels like he can't. He's afraid. He's hurt. He's all of these things. And I actually think, and this is just a shout out to John Booker, who I recorded an entire panel or a round table with some of the amazing people here at Celebration who are also myth nerds. So that'll be coming out shortly. And it was life-changing. So look out for that, definitely. But he said, we don't always talk about the denial of the call as an important step. And to me, it really is an important step because we ourselves are meant to use the stories that we tell ourselves and tell each other as roadmaps for ourselves. And to see somebody who didn't want to go on the journey, but ended up like overcoming that gives us an opportunity to do that for ourselves. Even if we couldn't make the change or go on a transformational change or go through an experience, at that time, we denied it of ourselves. There's always another opportunity to change or go on that journey or say yes to that journey or say yes to what we need. And he said that it's really important that we see others struggle with the call to adventure and deny it and then say yes eventually because it's never too late. That's like really, really important.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is a guy who's failed and yet, his mission isn't over. He's got a chance to, with Anakin, he's got, not only does he have a chance to help Anakin's children, but he also, learning that Anakin is still around is like this huge bombshell where he's like, oh, like, what I thought I knew about my existence and my failure is not the whole picture. Like, Anakin's out there, Padme said there's still good in him. This is a huge moment.
But this is all huge, like hard for him, right? It's hard. And we have to acknowledge that this is a hard thing he's going through.
Yeah.
Nari is also a shadow version of Obi-Wan who had hope at one point, who was willing to fight, who was willing to do all these things.
Yeah.
He is a reflection of something that existed at one point and an opportunity for him to grasp at that piece of himself and reconnect it to himself. And he says, no, I'd rather keep you separate.
I think he says something like, "What happened to you, man?" And if somebody said that to you, that would be such a wake-up call if somebody said that to you, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, you'd be like, yeah, who am I anymore?
Yeah. I'm not the man you remember, he tells Bale. That's, and it's true for the moment anyway, but it is cool how much this show has embraced the Ben Kenobi name as opposed to Obi-Wan. Like, that's meaningful for sure.
It is, yeah. And, I mean, Satine is the one who gives him the name. I hope that's brought up in the show, just like for me personally. Yeah. Then we cut to Leia, not Leia. We cut to Alderaan. Oh my God. So just like shout out to Claudia Gray, who established in like our modern canon so much about what Leia was like as a child, and so much of how I view Leia in Leia, Princess of Alderaan. There's a lot of Claudia Gray in this show, so I really hope the story group understood what had been done and made it all fit, I think, really, really well. And this is where it's another funny situation where Leia is getting dressed, or we all are like, oh my God, is that Leia? Brea comes in, and it is the wrong child, Obi-Wan Kenobi. The wrong child. You're paying attention to the wrong child.
Yeah, good call. Good call.
It's a foreshadow.
Yeah.
Isn't that brilliant?
That is brilliant. Yep.
And we get a quick flash of a hairpiece that is pulled out and put on a little chair, I think, or on a little pad, and it has 3 prongs. I'm not kidding you about 3s.
Nice.
I'm not kidding you. Okay. I will get to the 3s and what they mean in a bit. But we see the little girl who's running through the forest, and oh my God, she's adorable. And she's got a little droid named Lola, and it's a girl and her droid. Okay. And we go back to second Obi-Wan Kenobi journey back from the old manta ray farm. And he has the confrontation with Owen, where Owen's like, take your toy, I don't need you.
Yeah, basically, like, you know, you're not a part of this family. Like, we don't need your whole the Jedi nonsense. Like, we saw what that leads to, basically. And this pretty quickly transitions into the Inquisitors showing up, right?
Yeah. This is like very like good cop, bad cop Inquisitor situation, reward and punishment. Again, there's like a false binary happening. Like you can either be punished or rewarded.
Yeah.
There's always a third way.
Mm-hmm.
I use the third thing. We have fourth brother, I believe, is fourth brother and third sister. Or is he fifth brother?
Fifth, I think.
Fifth? Okay.
I'm not an expert on the numbers, but I think it's fifth. Yeah.
And then like they, she confronts Owen, is like, I'm going to kill your whole family. And the brother like comes in, the other Inquisitor is like, no, it's a reward. Seriously. Because like would have Obi-Wan interfered, he would have had to have, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't ready. He's been saying no.
Yeah.
Instead, Owen saves him.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? And says, I didn't do it for you. Yeah. He was really saving himself, of course, and Luke. We get this really cool interaction between third sister and the other brother. Sorry. Where he says, like, he slams her against the wall. It's like a Cabadon, and I feel like somebody out there is going to write a fic about this. Like, that's very like anime or like Japanese television show where somebody slams against the wall, like to be like, like, and that's just like their very like aggressive relationship. Mm-hmm. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was very intense. The scene where they like talk in the alleyway.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very intense thing. Did you have any other thoughts about this?
Well, I mean, I like that there's so much sort of conflict between the Inquisitors, how, you know, he's very like, he wants minimal drama, minimal bloodshed. He just kind of wants to like get through the day. Like he wants things to be tidy, and Riva is kind of like a little bloodthirsty and kind of represents like chaos and conflict. And the Grand Inquisitor is just like, you know, a similar thing where he's like, oh God, here we go again. She's like putting bounties on everybody, and like, you know, it's sort of like, you know, Iceman and Top Gun, I guess, is the big pop culture thing that people are talking about right now. It's like sometimes the Maverick hotshot is sort of endangering the group by having these personal vendettas and kind of working outside the rules. And in you know, pulpy fiction and TV and stuff, a lot of times you get that in like you know, cop shows and stuff where you have the Ray Liotta cop like asking for money, and you know, just like dirty cops and stuff like that. And so it's interesting that the Inquisitors are such a, I don't know, they're very procedural and kind of like not like you would expect them to be, you know, very not like Darth Vader like. And as you pointed out, Riva is kind of Darth Vader like, actually.
Yeah, like they're very like just doing my job, bam. Like it's fascinating, hey?
Yeah.
I'm gonna call them space cops from now on.
Well, and like, let's be honest, that's a lot of times institutional tyranny and like really awful stuff that happens in reality in day-to-day life. It often is dressed up with like respectability politics and like, you know, it's like, you know, oh, I'm the good guy here because I am speaking with Rupert Friend's, you know, pleasant stage theater voice, and you know, never mind the fact that we're here to execute somebody on site. I'm, you know,
and strip your rights away. Yeah,
yeah. I am merely, you know, bringing peace to the galaxy or whatever the hell they think they're doing. But
absolutely
protecting people. We're protecting people.
Yeah, we're doing this for your own safety, ma'am.
And then somebody mouths off and she gets her hand sliced off, like without a breath, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. So then we shift back. I called this section Keeping Up with the Organas. We have cousins and family coming to visit, and there's instant confrontation with the family where they meet them at the dock, and this snotty kid is there. And we cut to the sort of dinner soiree or whatever they're having at the Alderanian Palace, I assume. And the uncle is like, I didn't come here to talk about slavery. I came here to eat your food. This felt very Qui-Gon. I didn't come here to free slaves.
Yeah, they called out the Jedi a little bit there, didn't they? Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Yeah. He also says something that's like, thank God the Republic's out of the way because the Empire is like lining our pockets. Like that's very sort of overt politics for Star Wars to get into, which is kind of nice to see. It's sort of like
it's like, thank you for being thoughtful on Maine.
It's like DJ in Last Jedi, you know, it's like, ooh, they're being a little dangerous. I like it.
Yeah.
You know,
we get a shot of C-3PO. Ugh.
And Bale is like, his face is just furious,
like,
but
it's just like, like, yeah, like it felt like any of us who have those relatives that are like, I don't want to go to Thanksgiving dinner. I do not want to go to Thanksgiving dinner. Oh my God, I have to go to Thanksgiving dinner and have this conversation. And it's going to be super awkward. And they're going to bring up whatever. Oh God, no. What did you just say? I gotta eat this dinner. Like, this felt so relatable.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's sort of like Bale's domain is sort of like the Senate and the galaxy at large, whereas maybe Brea's domain is like Alderaan itself, which is sort of a, you know, I don't know.
That's very like balanced, because we have somebody who's focused on the external and somebody who's focused on the internal, and then together they are better than the sum of their parts.
Yeah. And you see those two halves in young Leia here, and you see them in Bloodline, or you see them in The Last Jedi. You know, she's a woman who can dress nice and wear jewelry and appreciate those things and be very feminine, but also she appreciates a scoundrel. She appreciates space and just all these other things too. So, yeah.
Because people are more than one thing.
Yeah, it's a very healthy way to be, for sure.
Absolutely. And then we, so she's hanging out with her cousin and she thanks the droid for, you know, who's leaving. And oh my God, I'm in love with this storytelling that like gets everything I've ever said. I don't know. Like, it's amazing, right? Like, I'm like, okay, so droids are the ultimate, like, slaves of the galaxy. They're sentient. They have to be treated with respect. Leia's like, thank you, right? Like, and the cousin's like, you don't have to thank a droid. Like, oh my God. How you treat droids, I judge you on how you treat droids.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. It goes all the way back to, you know, in Phantom Menace, you know, 3PO is sort of Anakin's surrogate son / brother.
Yeah.
And then also, like, even in Rise of Skywalker, you have Leia telling Rey, like, never underestimate a droid, you know, because, you know, R2 was the vessel for, you know, getting her message to Obi-Wan, you know, in the original. So it all kind of, she's tied up.
And this has
R2.
been a consistent thing with Leia's character. She thanks droids. She has respect for them. And like Mon Mothma in, I think it was Last Shot, like sort of admonishes Han Solo for not being nicer to his droid. Droids are part of the Republic, and they need to be treated with respect for what they're part of our society is. Mon Mothma tells Han that. And like, I love that is becoming like the kindness, not just to other sentients, it's kindness to droids who are also sentients, is becoming like a more consistent through line. And we've seen it now in live action more often.
Yeah. Yeah. And we see Obi-Wan sort of grow a little bit in that regard too, where in episodes 1 and 2, he's not really like a big droid person, but in episode 3, he sort of is like apologetic with Anakin when he kind of implies that R2 is incompetent or whatever. Like,
yeah.
I didn't say anything.
And then he becomes friendly with R2.
Yeah.
Hello, my little friend.
Yeah, in 4. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good call.
So like, it's growth, right?
Yep.
Growth. And then, you know, the cousin's like pissed off at the challenge to his values, and says, you're not even a real Organa. Like, your parents are scared to let you like leave the planet. They keep you a secret. Like, you're like a dirty secret.
Yeah.
You know, like, okay, so I got to talk about this for a second. And like, then she responds and is like, you're scared of him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you'll never live up to him. Okay, so this is literally a redone version of what happens in The Force Awakens in the interrogation room between Rey and Kylo.
Yeah. You'll never be as
alone.
Powerful as Darth Vader. Yeah.
You're alone. I see the ocean. I see the island, desperate to sleep. You're afraid that you'll never be strong enough as Darth Vader. You'll never be like Darth Vader. Oh my God. Like chef's kiss. Mwah! I love Star Wars when. And it's not the same, but the vibes are there. The immaculate vibes are there of understanding that people viewed the world from a different place. And many times dark side users are caught up in their own attempting to be someone that has been told they need to be, right? Mm-hmm. And we ourselves, when we are sort of on a path of growth and a path of compassion and a path of kindness and love, are often, we feel alone, surrounded by people who don't understand what we're trying to do with ourselves. Because the world is a cruel place, and you're like, why do you care about all these things? Or like, why are you doing this when it's just easier to be selfish?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love it. She gets pissed off at him and makes him cry, right? Because she, and I do believe that she's using the Force. Like, I feel like the Force is very, because she's, like, that's what Rey happened. That's what happened with Rey. She was using the Force. She understood exactly his deepest, darkest fears. It just comes intuitively to Leia. It's not something that she has to push. It's just intuition and in her.
Yeah. Yeah, like when she was pregnant, she could sort of sense, like, Ben and things like that. Like, she's, it's a very, almost like what Han Solo, arguably, right? Like, they've sort of implied that, you know, if a pilot is, like, this sort of supernaturally gifted person, that it might have some kind of, something to do with the Force and sensing.
Well, okay, so the Force is in everything,
right,
and everyone can access the Force. It's just a matter of if your mind is open enough to do it easily enough, or if you understand the interconnectedness of everything to do it enough. There isn't actually like a lineage thing. I think it's just easier for quote unquote Anakin because he came as a pure version of love.
Mm-hmm. He
is made up of love, which is the Force, which is that interconnectedness to everything when he was born. Anyways, Soapbox talked about this before, but we got to talk about Kenobi, so I won't go off on a rant about the Force. Bail comes and sees Leia, and talks about this line I just absolutely love. I used to dream about, or I used to chase Purgle.
Yeah.
Escape and chase Purgle. And I was like, oh, Purgle. Rebels reference. But I got older and chased your mother instead.
I loved that line.
I loved it too. Thank you, Deborah Chow, or the writers for coming up with that line. The writing teleplay group, the story room. Because it's like the idea that like our dreams change and transform and what we're interested in. And yeah, he wanted love. He wanted Brea. And Brea, I love. I know that they recast her, but like this actress is doing so good.
Yeah.
And he just reminds her, like, fundamentally, no matter what, you are an Organa. You are us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a good dad. We like to see it.
She has escaped. She left. Even after the talk, and we get Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers capturing little Leia in Star Wars. I died.
Yeah, it's so good. I don't know. At one point, I thought I had a connection for why he might have been cast, but I've already lost it. I should have written it down.
Is somebody a big Red Hot Chili Peppers fan, and they just like asked him, like, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's sort of dressed like his Big Lebowski character, but not super similarly. Like just like a black leather jacket, I think. But which that movie sort of involves like kidnapping type stuff and ransom. So there you go. Maybe that's the connection. I don't know.
Maybe somebody loved him in the Big Lebowski. That could be it, right? Like it could be.
They did cite that as an influence for Solo, so yeah. I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know.
That's so interesting. And of course Leia is kidnapped after calling for help. It's an intense scene. She does really well trying to escape. yeah,
she's like sliding and running and but there's just too many of them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We cut back to Kenobi and we hear the communicator, and he pulls it out of the box. There's 3 lights on the communicator.
Yeah.
And this is the denial a second time. So we get the holo that pops up with Brea and Bail, and it's exactly like Leia from a holo perspective, except it's the 2 of them, right? We can't trust anyone else. So it's very reminiscent of the New Hope holographic message, right? Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. You know, and there's a lot of like, why me in this? Like, he's like, why not your guards? Why not this? Like, why does it have to be me? And this is really fundamental to the denial of the call. We ask ourselves, why me? Why is it me that has to do this? Right? And it helps us process that there is no one else. There is no one else that can tell our own story or can walk our own path. It always has to be you. And I really loved, and it shocked me that he's like, I have a duty to the boy, you know?
She's just as important as he is. Yeah. Like,
what about her sister? You know, his sister. Like, oh God, what did you think of this?
It was good. It was very on the nose. You know, it was dialogue that there was no room for misinterpretation of what they were saying. It's a nice sort of stepping stone to you know, sort of the discussion that happens with Yoda in like Empire and Return of the Jedi. Like,
there is another.
Yeah, that boy is our last hope, and Yoda's like, "What are you talking?"
Dude, we've talked about this.
We've been over this. Yeah, exactly.
We've talked about how there is another.
Yes.
Stop it, dude. It's also a solid reminder to the fandom that like girls exist.
Yes.
That's in the subtext, I think. Well, not in the subtext, it's literally directly in the text. But that, you know, it's both of them. Okay, and this is where I get to talk about why 3s are important. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. So, you have different aspects of yourself inside of you, and you have sort of this binary concept inside of Star Wars. Like, you could go right or left. You could go walk that way or this way. You could be an Imperial or a rebel, a Jedi or a Sith. But the truth is, only you can walk your own path, and it will always be the third choice. Always be the third choice. And Obi-Wan and the Force and the universe cannot transform without the whole aspects of itself. So we create a triangle with having Luke, Leia, and Obi-Wan. And it will be eventually Luke, Leia, and Anakin, because it is Luke's love for Leia, Anakin's threat of Leia, and Luke's willingness to love both of them instead of hate any one of that triangle that saves them. And he realized, and I think that we're going to see over the course of this, that he can't treat one side above the other. He had to walk down the middle and help both of them. Because that is something that Joseph Campbell calls the mask of God. And this is what's going to lead him to the next phase of his actual, like, large journey on his full hero's journey, which is his apotheosis and his understanding of where he sits inside of the galaxy and his place, and creates a large amount of energy and having a certainty of purpose, that he cannot just pass on what he has learned to Luke alone. He has to protect both of them because they are both Anakin in who they are, right? They're Anakin and Padme, and he is protecting the next generation and giving them the keys to help. It's always like there's a middle path, right? And he has them on either side of him. And they're telling us that this third way, this like path you can only make for yourself, is important. It's not just Luke or Leia, it's both.
Yeah. And not to poke at anything, but also, you know, you have the sort of subset of the audience who's very angry that Leia used the Force in The Last Jedi. And you have another subset of the audience who's very angry, perhaps rightfully, but, you know, because of just the implications of her being a Jedi in Rise of Skywalker. And so here, the sort of where we're going right now is kind of like, you know, why can't she be all these many things that she is and complex. And I think that's fun that they're teasing that out and kind of, again, the willingness to kind of retell the myth and sort of rewrite history a little bit and say like,
iterate it so that it helps people see themselves a little bit more in these characters and maybe understand. Again, art is the propaganda of the self. Understand a little bit more about yourself.
People have often and rightly poked fun at the moment in A New Hope where Luke is sort of like just devastated and sitting at the hollow chessboard, and Leia is comforting him, and he just lost like his sort of uncle figure buddy, and then she just lost her entire planet and her whole family, and it's the focus is very much on Luke. And so by being willing to break some bones and rewrite the myth a little bit, it's a nice sort of way to right wrongs without disrespecting the source material, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yep. So we get a very, very short slice of working time. Like he checks out from getting his pay for the day, next. And he comes through the town and Nari is dead. He is hanging from the archway. And this is really important because it's not the Inquisitors that did this. It was the town. And this is him recognizing that this is the third denial because he could have done something in this. He could still go and right an injustice. Like Nari didn't need to die. And the Force is saying somebody will die if you don't answer this call. Yeah.
It's a very Western moment.
And
right?
a piece of you has died, right?
Yeah.
Slicing off the whale. A piece of you has died by letting this Jedi die. You sliced off a piece of yourself by denying this young man a chance.
Yeah, somebody who believed in you and saw you as a symbol of hope, like you let them die, basically. And it's that kind of idea that like a sort of Wild West frontier landscape like Tatooine, it's kind of cruel and inhospitable on its own. So it's really the people living there get to set the tone. And if good people don't take action, then the bad people get to set the agenda.
Yeah,
they're the people taking action. So
yeah, exactly. And unexpectedly, Bail Organa is in his house.
Yeah, looking like Luke at the end of The Force Awakens, kind of, if you want like a visual parallel there.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, you couldn't say, he calls him out on his bullshit. Like it happened in the past. Like very Rafiki of him from, Lion King. Like smack. Yeah. And, did that hurt? Like, yeah, of course it hurt, but it's in the past, I do think that you need time to understand your emotions, but that doesn't mean you can't still take steps forward while you're processing and doing things. You can't sit and ruminate. You can process while walking. And I think that that's what's important, is that by taking action and doing things, it helps you process what you're going through, because every little step, even if it's slow, moves you forward in your journey.
Yeah. Yeah, we get the sense that he's been having the same nightmares for 10 years, right? Rather than doing anything about it.
Not doing anything about it, just living in a maze of his own pain. We have Leia attempting to escape using her droids because she's smart. And I love that this is like, we see different aspects of Leia sort of like develop from both Anakin and Padme. Like her affinity, she's got a droid. She has an affinity for droids, just like Anakin. Mm-hmm. Right? Like Padme didn't have an affinity for droids. Anakin had I love seeing Anakin in Leia and I love seeing Padme in Luke. I love that. Yeah. And I love how she like gets captured very shortly. The droid breaks. She's like, my father will rescue me. He'll send a whole army. Okay, I got to talk about this for a quick sec. What did you think of this first?
The one thing that struck me about her watching the spaceships overhead before I forget is just that when we're introduced to Anakin, the people that he idolizes are not so much the Jedi really, but like he says, like, I've heard the deep space pirates talk about them, to Padme. The people he idolizes are pilots who travel the stars. And I think that's fun that she's doing the same thing, sort of watching these ships take off. And then the cousin says that, she's sort of not allowed to leave the planet. So that's a fun Anakin parallel that you were kind of touching on. But yeah, also, bring an army and then instead she gets like the broken, haunted old man. That's a very like Luke in Last Jedi kind of thing, maybe, where he takes on the whole First Order. What did you think was going to happen? And then he makes it happen because he's
Luke Skywalker.
Luke Skywalker,
and I also to me this is like it's a larger metaphor for Star Wars, being that. We often think that the only way to solve our problems is either through violence or fighting, not through compassion, love, or talking or relations to others, to getting to know each other. And her instinct to be like, the army is coming, is like, yeah, we want to feel something satisfying where like the army is coming. But sometimes fighting is not the best course of action, right? Sometimes it's just easier just to like send one person who can make sure that things happen. And it's through convincing people and going through this. I think that this is really creating, I hope, sort of an anti-violence conversation that by the end of this show, we'll be able to have full anti-violence, anti-patriarchal conversations about.
Yeah, Obi-Wan
I'm excited.
Obi-Wan says in A New Hope, like, there are alternatives to fighting. And here, you kind of think that him and Reva are about to have, like, this lightsaber duel. And instead, he hides and he runs and, basically escapes, right? Or we assume he does. I don't know. I can't remember exactly when we cut to, like, Vader's face, but I'm getting ahead of myself. But
he's on the ship. So you're right.
Yeah, he is escaped.
And that's what I want to point out, that there's several instances of people thinking that violence is the answer. And this is like fundamental, right? People thinking that violence is the answer. This is the Luke at the end of The Last Jedi again. People think violence is the answer, and really there is an alternative to fighting, like what Obi-Wan teaches Luke.
Yeah.
So good. It's so good. It gives me like all of the amazing feelings and emotions I love from Star Wars. Obi-Wan goes and digs up his lightsabers. There's a lot of metaphor in this. Lightsabers are your life. This is his heart in his lightsaber. He has buried it in the sand. So metaphorically dead, buried lightsaber, dead Obi-Wan, right? Obi-Wan is dead. It is buried in the sand. And He brings it up because he thinks he needs to commit violence.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he wears it openly on his like belt, which is interesting.
It's exactly like Western, right? Like I have a gun, you know. I'm willing to kill somebody. Okay. You think that's the way, but you're going to learn a lesson and this is going to be your apotheosis. I'm super excited. So and then we get that, like, you know, the Jedi will hunt himself, like recall, and we get back to him leaving the planet, going through going across the dunes to the city, and literally we get asked with the gateway, "You're coming, are you not?"
Yeah.
Because it's a gateway. He's about to cross the threshold on this Obi-Wan Kenobi show journey. Amazing.
Yeah.
I cheered so loud in the celebration stage. Like, it was amazing.
Yeah. There was some hesitation, I think, in the general audience of like, oh, they're going to like leave Tatooine and have him go like on this adventure, and seeing it play out the way it has. Like, I'm so glad they did that, because it adds like a rich, you know, meaning to, you know, the fact that he is going off and facing danger and facing his past, rather than just kind of, you know, letting himself become like part of history or whatever. Just
fading into the sands of time, like being wiped away from existence, right? Like that's what the sands. So like the metaphor of the title, and I didn't talk about it when we saw the title for the first time, but we see the title just before this part for part 2, right? The title itself is Obi-Wan Kenobi's name covered in sand and being revealed. Like, we are finding him again. He is coming out of being buried and dead and coming alive again. The spiritual aridity, right? Like, this is exactly what we are doing for Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? Also, just to let you know, like, generally speaking, traveling into space is traveling into the unknown part of the journey. You don't know where you're going. You don't know what you're going into. It is Campbell, when he talks about his journey, he used to draw the circle and then a line between, like, across the middle, basically. And when we go into the unknown, we are about to enter into a transformational journey of our subconscious. And so this is like space is going into the ultimate unknown. Anything could happen in there. And so him entering a ship and going off into the unknown is us knowing he is passing the first threshold on his journey, this journey within the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, which is still part of his larger journey where he is trying to be reborn as a new version of himself. Okay. Part 2! Yay! We get introduced to the planet Dayu. What did you think of Dayu?
It's sort of Blade Runner-esque. It's there's rats on the ground, sort of following him as he walks. Mm-hmm. I thought it was kind of cute. In Halloween H2O, there's a really sort of winking at the camera moment where Janet Leigh says to Jamie Lee Curtis, "I'm feeling somewhat like maternal toward you," or something like that, where it's sort of like, haha, it's her real mom. And here he bumps into his real life daughter, Esther Rose McGregor, who says, "I was someone's daughter once too," which is fun because he's playing a surrogate, you know, what do you call it? Girl dad? Is that the colloquialism now?
Is that what it is? I don't know.
What, the girl dad thing?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I've seen that on social media, but you know, I thought that was cute when I saw that. I think that the spectacle looks good. You know, I think it's sort of a step up from some of the other, what do you want to call it? Like Disney Plus stuff we've seen in terms of like, you know, this is George's vision of, you know, Star Wars Underworld, bringing like Coruscant to the small screen. You know, I think you see a pretty good version of that here. The stormtroopers are sort of like dingy looking and very tactile. You know, these are not the clean clone troopers from like Attack of the Clones. This is like a galaxy that's seen some better days.
Yeah.
You quite literally, you see Tamara cameo as like a clone trooper who's like, unhoused and like begging for spare change.
Oh, I love that moment.
This is a sort of it's a very real world for Star Wars,
Yeah, it felt real, and it felt I don't know, it felt good to have a new planet, to be like, there's a new planet.
Yeah.
This is a new place.
Right.
Yeah. It is so a couple of key points from like a hero's journey mythic perspective. No communications on and off planet. This is a different belly of whale. Specifically for the hero's journey, he has passed the threshold into the belly of the whale directly. Like, he came directly here. It's part of his road of trials, so this is not the first thing he's going to need to experience to get to his lowest point in the Kenobi show. And the clone trooper is absolutely a shadow of his past. He's a soldier archetype that he has seen in himself. He looks like him. He has a beard. This clone trooper has a beard to reflect Obi-Wan Kenobi and his beard.
Yeah.
And he's part of Anakin's 501st. He looks like Rex and Obi-Wan together.
He does have the blue stripes. You're right. Yeah.
He has the blue stripes. So he's 501st.
Yikes.
He's Anakin's Legion. And it's like Anakin and Obi-Wan together. And so this is like, we were soldiers in the past. And this soldier is broken and I'm broken. Like, this is shadow of the past stuff coming up, right? So he is compassionate. He gives him money, but he also like, it's sort of like lip service to it, right? Like, it's not recognizing the pain that he's been through. It's not helping him, truthfully.
Yeah. It's sort of like he's paying a part of the debt and sort of turning his back, right? Like, he's sort of giving a man a fish for a day or whatever the
yeah, exactly. Like, he's not processing like that. This version of Anakin and Obi-Wan, like literally Anakin and Obi-Wan, not processing, is sitting in a gutter.
Mm-hmm.
Anakin and you, Obi. Like, the universe is telling you that you're both sitting in a gutter. You're at your lowest points.
Yeah. And when his daughter cameos as like the spice dealer, one of the drugs that she offers him, she says, like,
his daughter was in the show and she's amazing. Oh my god.
One of the things she offers is,
I'm looking for my daughter.
Yeah. She offers like Felucia is one of the options.
Yeah. Which
is, of course, like visually and symbolically, it's like the opposite of where we're at right now. Yeah. That's sort of like life and growth and vegetation, like basically like Garden of Eden type stuff. And here we're like, we're in the gutters with the rats right now.
Rats and cold concrete and industrialization and machines.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's where we're at. Like, it's like, and there's like drugs and like people are only existing. And she says, like, he's like, I'm looking for my daughter. She was taken. And he's like, I was somebody's daughter once. Gives him spice. And then says, like, take this and you'll forget you ever had a daughter.
Yeah. In like a matter of minutes or hours or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like this is like, oh God, this to me is just like this is how we get stuck at our lowest point and struggle to move past it, right? Like, we accept the quick out and not the hard work.
Yeah.
The quick out would be to forget our daughter, or the thing we meant to do. It's hard to accept that we have to do the hard journey or the hard road sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's been a lot of like science fiction about like, just forget, and then you don't have to go through like the grieving process or.
Yeah. And then you end up like needing to do the work.
Yeah.
Right? But I think it's important if storytellers are going to show that. Like, hey, it's you can't forget you have to do the hard work. They have to show the hard work a little bit. Like, they can't just like, yeah. Anyways, that's just a Mandalorian season or Book of Boba Fett comment. Sorry, don't show Grogu Order 66 and not let him process. Thank you. And then we get introduced to a character named Jaco, who is like a street rat who offers Obi-Wan a Jedi who can help him.
Oh, yeah. Meaning he takes him to Kumail Nanjiani's character, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Whose name is Haja Estri, which is such a Star Wars name. Good job. But he's a faux Jedi. And oh my God. Okay. I love this so much. What did you think of Haja?
Well, so when me and one of my buddies were playing like Fortnite or something, like immediately after we watched Obi-Wan for the first time, and we were just sort of like giving our immediate reactions, I was saying that one of the great things about the show and why it sort of feels like, you know, prestige TV and like, you know, the real deal to me, you can tell long before the magnets are revealed that he is not the real deal, because the acting and the writing is so good, and in the performances, to me, you know, you can read on Ewan's face, Kumail's face, like, you know, I knew long before the magnets that this was not a real Jedi, and
like he seemed like a person who's a street magician or a charlatan. Like it felt very charlatan-esque.
Yeah,
right. Like they did it well. Yeah,
I feel like sometimes in Star Wars, like it's written so that you kind of just have to take it, or not in Star Wars, but just in sort of like media that is sort of made with young people in mind. Sometimes the subtleties, you know, are not always
get lost.
Yeah. You know, you just kind of have to take what they're saying. But here it was very cool the way the scene played out. It's a great directing and great performances.
Yeah, and I went to the Sky Talkers celebration podcast stage, and shout out to those amazing women and for just being absolute queens of celebration with the interview with Hayden and Hayden and Ewan and Deborah Chow beforehand, as well as doing their amazing podcast stage. But they pointed out that there's something about how the Jedi become myths in the sequel trilogy, and how like it's really interesting to see the degradation of what that was, and almost turning into a mythological concept, and like people using it to say like, you know, oh, there used to be wizards, but now I'm a wizard, or you know, I now have magical abilities, even though like they don't. Like it's really interesting to see kind of like the cultural consumption where it becomes fake instead of real. And I just love that. I love that they said that. So shout out, ladies, you guys are amazing, of course.
That is great.
What I found super interesting about the pairing of this pretending Jedi versus the real Jedi was that it was a pretending Jedi who was actually helping people and a real Jedi who wasn't.
Yeah, I thought that the choice to make him ultimately a decent person and kind of do a heroic thing, that was brilliant. I enjoyed the line. He says something about, you know, are you familiar with the Jedi, or whatever he says. And Obi-Wan's line is basically like a riff on Han Solo, like the simple tricks and nonsense. But he says like something about magnets and, you know.
Yeah.
He's basically like, I don't believe in that garbage. And, you know, it's just funny because, you know, he's Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, and Obi-Wan Kenobi eventually is like, no, Han Solo, you need to believe in this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh man, it's good. It's nice to see like these things like being thrown around. Like Obi-Wan eventually needs to be like, no, the Force is real. You know, like, oh, it's just so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, he calls him a rat, and then we see a rat as a cut. That was a really great audio to visual like transition. I appreciated that on a storytelling level. So shout out to like everybody who like is like rat. And shout out to all my Raylo rats. You guys are great. Like, so he directs him to like, well, if it's the gutter you want, it's this like spice lab and like maybe the grossest place in the city, right? Like, it's like, oh, I know that where these people would be. Wherever Flea is obviously where it is. And he gets in, and the getting in is brilliant. Like how he like steals that guy's clothes. He goes and joins the spice lab, and like makes a distraction. Like he's Obi-Wan Kenobi, and we see so much in the Clone Wars how he can do this so easily. You know, like this is easy for him, but he falls into the trap.
Yeah. Speaking of the laboratory scene, so I'm a big Better Call Saul fanboy.
And Breaking Bad, right?
So yeah, so I had to call out that, you know, Rian Johnson came from Breaking Bad, Deborah Chow came from Better Call Saul, and for people who don't know, the editor of all of Obi-Wan Kenobi is Kelly Dixon, and her claim to fame is that she edited the very first meth making montage in the Breaking Bad pilot from like 2008. So
oh my god.
So when I saw
this feels like a shout out, like this feels
when you see him in the sort of like raincoat thing with like the very like Walter White mask on, I was like, that feels like a little like heart to Kelly Dixon, like thanks for being a part of this. Or I don't know, maybe that's a reach and maybe it has nothing to do with
maybe
her.
not. Who knows, right? Like, but I saw a meme of him, and it had the Breaking Bad writing, and it said Breaking Ben.
Oh, okay. Nice.
And I was like, yes, let's break him so we can reform him. Yes. The memes, start the memes already. Let's go. Yeah. We're ready. But he gets tricked, of course. And Flea's like, the Inquisitor really figured you out.
Yeah.
And he's like, spice drop. Like a wizard, right? Like a magician. He's like, nah.
That's good.
But he realizes that like Leia had to be close to like fool him. And so he finds her. It reminded me a lot of A New Hope, but like feisty Leia, I guess. I don't know how else I could say that. Your father sent me. I'm here to help. Obi-Wan sent me. I'm here to rescue you. Like we get these like we're getting like echoes, right? Like it's not quite, but it's like familiar. And
oh boy, I don't know how confident I am about this, but compositionally, he is where she stood in the original frame of that shot. And so it's almost like this young Leia is rescuing him in this.
Absolutely. Oh my god.
She is rescuing him in this story.
Yes, exactly, because we need others to like help us and remind us who we are, because we can't always see ourselves clearly.
Yeah. I saw someone tweeting, I don't know, some panel at Celebration, somebody brought up, maybe it was Kevin Scott, brought up the idea of, you know, Luke really rescued like Yoda from, you know, who he was on Dagobah. It's a very similar thing. You know, it's easy to kind of get lost in the swamp and eat your stew and be like, I don't want to deal with that family drama anymore. I'm just gonna, you know.
Absolutely. And I think that it's important to realize that the younger generation comes at things with a different perspective and a different lens, and can help rescue us from ourselves, to remind us of what is important and that hope still lives, that hope comes more easily to kids. And sometimes we need that. We need that reminder from them. And that's why that's really important from a storytelling perspective.
Yeah, it's good. Good stuff.
We get that direct Anakin parallel here with Reva, with the confrontation with the Grand Inquisitor. Like, he's pissed at her, of course, because of what she's been doing. It's like, you came from the gutter. Your abilities give you station, but I will secure Kenobi myself. Like, this is just, I just feel like there's this connection with Anakin from a Reva perspective.
Yeah.
Like, in a way, this would be very Palpatine versus Anakin.
Yeah.
Like, strategy, pawn pieces. Like, you know, Anakin maybe is trying to train his first apprentice who's gonna, and then kill Palpatine. Like, that just, like, feels like maybe that's in the cards. Like, I found somebody who I identify with, who lived in the gutter, who was like, who could be more and is powerful. Reva is powerful. Your abilities give you station, right? But you are not a master yet, right? And we do not give you the rank of master. Like, she understands what it's like to be treated. Like, even though she's so skilled and so powerful on her own, she's not given, like, kind of the respect that she feels like she should have based on that. And, like, many of us know what that's like.
Yeah, you have the Death Star as a good metaphor for, like, institutions and, like, the Empire's might. And we see on screen Ben Mendelsohn's character, Director Krennic, and we see Darth Vader, and they're the ones doing all the work to run that ship. But at the end of the day, it is Grand Moff Tarkin and it is Palpatine who get all the credit for that, or, you know, some of those other Imperial guys, like Taggy, you know, the guys with the, you know, the special pins on their uniform, you know, with the nice pressed pants. Like, they're the guys who get to take the credit at the end of the day.
I do also get the feeling like this is a democratization of the Force as well. Like, the Force can come from the least expected places, or it's not based on lineage. Like, it's not based on who you know. You know, like, it feels like, by pointing out that, like, Reva is kind of a nobody in the eyes of the Inquisitors, that felt very Rey nobody to me.
Yeah.
And I will protect Reva with my life. I love her. I should probably warn people, like, this is just a really solid reminder that, like, very few Jedi survive, or Force users survive. We don't even see the Inquisitors in the OT era, right? Very easily. So unless she continues on as a dark side user, if she has a change of heart at all, she may be, she may die by the end of this. And I don't want that to happen. I just feel like people need to, like, prepare themselves mentally for that.
Yeah. I hope she goes off and buys a fishing boat or something and lives out the like, her dream somewhere, and not some violent end. But yeah.
These wars and stars, I don't like them. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I just feel like it's just a solid reminder that, like with rare exception, I mean, we have Cal Kestis, right? Of course. Potentially out there, and maybe there's more Jedi. They're just not, like, you know, it's like they were very strict, and this could be what I hope this is more of what you're saying about, like, we're kind of rewriting history a little bit to give us some of our other heroes. Like, Ezra had to leave the friggin' galaxy on a Purgle ship, like, whatever. Ahsoka had to be, like, not a Jedi for a while and then come back as a Jedi. Like they're like very strict about the rules in weird ways, but maybe it's just, like, the last of the Jedi you will be, or, like, the, you know, only us remains, like, the Yoda line or whatever that everybody's, like, thinking about, who, like, it's not canon because there was only Luke. Yeah, you know, whatever. I'm just wondering if, like, Lucasfilm has decided to be like, well, you know, of the ones that Yoda was aware of, or something like that. You know, like, I hope that that's the case, because it really sucks. It would really suck to see a person of color and a cool character die on screen, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. This is sort of a unique villain with like a, it would really suck to just see it be like the same old like sort of Star Killer or Trilla.
Or Trilla.
Yes.
Yeah, Trilla from Jedi Fallen Order.
We all love Trilla.
Situation.
Yeah.
It would suck. That's all I got to say.
Yeah.
Because like that's the idea is that like we're killing a piece of ourselves if she dies, I think.
Yeah. I guess there's always, is there the possibility that Trilla's not dead? I don't know. Maybe that's a dumb thing to ask, but I feel like...
Okay, so this is so funny. We'll get to that. Could we get to that question when we see the Grand Inquisitor? Or we talk about the Grand Inquisitor being stabbed?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Reva sends the bounty hunters after them, which I think was a brilliant thing. She's like, I listen to no man.
Yeah.
Like, my boss is Darth Vader. That's the vibe I'm getting. I again, that's entirely just me speculating based on symbols and parallels. So, but we get Leia putting on the little green cape. Like, they're like, we have to change clothes, and she looks like Leia from Endor Moon.
Yeah, or like
right? And then
like Billy on Planet.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. Like Billy Lord. Yeah. And she like grabs the gloves and he's like, you don't need those gloves. And she puts them on anyways. He's like, and the gloves. Like, I've experienced that as a parent.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
My kid is already taking, like, you and I just want to like vibe a little bit like our children, like, you know, like, and I'll take that lollipop that kid already put in his mouth. Like,
yeah. You're like, is it worth it to like make a fuss about like $3 more, or is the tantrum that they're about to throw, you know, like you get away the cost benefit at the cash register and the likelihood of a tantrum. So
absolutely,
that doesn't really apply to 10-year-old Princess Leia, but anyway. Yeah.
No, I mean, like, you know, she was like, these gloves totally tied the outfit together.
Yeah.
Of course I have to have them. I get it.
Yeah.
And then he's like, if anyone asks, you're my daughter and we're here from, you know, place. And she like snarky. She's like, granddaughter, maybe.
Yeah. I think he says like Tawan, like TAWN or something like that, maybe like Tawn. I don't know. I don't remember what the significance of that might be, but he gives some kind of name. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like this is really important because effectively by him saying, you are my daughter, he is surrogately adopting her in his mind, right? Like he is taking responsibility for her. He is becoming a dad, right? Like, and this is like a big thing in Star Wars right now. The 3 major shows we have is the male nurturing fantasy of being able to be a dad and a hero at the same time. Mandalorian and Bad Batch and Kenobi. They're all this idea of being able to be to balance it all, go on your journey and still be a dad. Mm-hmm. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, like surrogacy is really, really important. And I think that it's important to point out that like George Lucas was an adopted dad. Like he adopted kids and that was really, really important to him.
Yep.
And it's interesting that that's like coming around now and becoming like a major theme, at least at this point in Star Wars' storytelling. It's across all of the media. Yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah, when he's sort of around, but not, you know, sort of front and center as like a creator, but he's sort of there, you know, he sort of has his office.
You can feel George Lucas in the room. You can, I think.
Yeah. I think he
like it feels like this is something he always wanted to say and never got an opportunity to say. What is it to be a dad who loves children?
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, I mean, you see in the sequel trilogy as it sort of developed and went on, and they sort of took different directions with it. You know, you see like avenues that they considered with like, in the design for Rey's outfit in The Last Jedi, they toyed with the idea that she would sort of dress like Han in The Last Jedi, and just like just different little things that were in the air. You know, what are the implications of her dressing like Han? You know, to me, it's just like she felt like he was a, you know, I mean, Kylo says it in Force Awakens, like you felt like
he's the father you never knew.
Yeah, and I think that like George Lucas's dad was not a malevolent force in his life, maybe, but like there was a distance, right? I think there was just you know, I think that he was able to do what he did because of his father's business and wealth, but I don't think there was a tight emotional connection there. I think they were just sort of
and like there was not an understanding of like, yeah, you can read all about George Lucas and all of his history and everything like that, but like there's the classic, like, you don't understand me. I come from a different background, etc. Or I want to be a different person and I rebel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very classic. And she like sees the lightsaber because they're changing clothes. And he's like, why aren't you using your lightsaber? Why aren't you being a Jedi? Make me float. Make me float. Like when a kid like finds out that you like are special in some ways, they're like, this felt so real. Like, make me float, you're a Jedi.
Yeah, show me, prove it. Also, there's that line of like Ben. That doesn't sound like a Jedi's name, which is such a beautiful irony with her son. But anyway. Yeah,
good. Exactly. And like, to me, like I called this out at, you know, in my reaction podcast. I cannot believe I'm recording this much for this show already, but I feel the need to talk this much. So that's what you're getting. But that's my name, right? So like sort of like a true name situation. It's kind of neat. I know you're hiding something. So this is like Leia, like instinctually knowing that there is something different about what Obi-Wan is telling us. And like I've been reading a lot of the women who run with the wolves, and it's by Clarissa Piccola Estes, and she was a Jungian psychologist who also dug deeply into folklore and fairy tale to really understand the wild woman archetype. And it's really, really interesting, but she talks about how the feminine has a natural aspect of instinct. And if we are listening to it closely, we know way more than we give ourselves credit for. And that it's one of the big things that we need to, all of us, is listen to that internal voice inside of us that tells us things, and we should listen. Right? And it's deep, 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 deep down. And it's like in your gut. It's deep inside of you that tells you things. I know you're hiding something. And she was right. But it was his name. It was his truth. But it was the truth of where she came from. Right? It wasn't the intentional lie. Like they're actually looking for me. He doesn't really consider that. It's like keeping her past from her truth from her.
I think so too. I think that must be going there because, yeah.
It's really interesting because we know Leia has a very strong hate of Vader. I feel like we might get Leia and Vader interact at some point. Yeah.
Right.
And then this convinces Ben that he can never tell Leia what she truthfully is or where her background is from.
Yeah, when she's, married and has a kid at that point. Yeah, that's,
This is really important. As painful as it is, it's better to know your shadows at the right time and place.
I think so, yeah.
We see that in Bloodline. She didn't know that her father was Vader until Bloodline.
I had that same thought.
Yeah, her kid was away at Jedi school.
we've established that Leia is as important to the story as Obi-Wan in some ways because of all the time that we've spent with her so far. So, it would be sort of weird if we sort of drop the Leia plot and just go to the Anakin plot, halfway through or something. I don't think they'll entirely do that. They might do that a little bit out of necessity because she's a 10-year-old girl.
I think we might get a little return kid action. They might switch over to Luke for a bit, and she returns to Alderaan. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
How old are you? Oh, I'm 10. You don't sound like you're 10. And this, of course, eventually reminds him of Padme. This made me really emotional. Like, I don't really cry at shows, but I got a little teary, misty even, just hearing the mention of Padme or thinking about who she might be, or the mere mention of it. It really got to me.
Mm-hmm.
I really love that, this goes to the comics, that Leia went to Padme's tomb. I think it was in the Rise of The Force Awakens, or the Force Awakens, like pre-comics, that she went to Padme's tomb sort of by accident. She was going to Naboo and she felt a connection with that place. Obi-Wan and her get help from Haja Estri, the fake Jedi, and helps them get off the planet, or at least have an escape, which Obi-Wan is very suspicious of.
It's a sabacc card, right?
Yeah, it is a sabacc card.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. Cool little symbol.
Yeah. We get this really cool conversation next with Leia talking about Lola, because Obi-Wan's trying to calm her. And, Leia says, it's okay. She's hurt, but she's strong. And, that's a really nice reminder for us to, it's okay. We're hurt, but we can get through this. And then there's this knocked out bounty hunter with a comm on his wrist that's showing a picture of the two of them. Again, 3 lit up dots on the comm, so another 3. And this is where Leia starts to realize and starts to be afraid that maybe Obi-Wan isn't who he says he is. The importance of the 3s is that, we have 2 people who are floating above, but there's an indication that we're missing somebody. We need a 3rd person. We need Luke, right? In this. And she says, you did lie. They're after you. And then she runs away.
So we get the chase of she's now afraid of Obi-Wan and she thinks he's set this whole thing up because he's some bad guy.
We get the cutaway between Haja Estes and Reva, who he confronts, and she uses the Force trick to pull the information, very Kylo Ren out of his head from The Force Awakens.
Nice.
And then we cut to Leia talking about lessons in gratitude a little bit.
Yeah.
She says, why is it hard to believe you have friends? If somebody is offering you help, I think we should take it.
Yeah.
This is so important.
Yeah, yeah.
What gets us through our lowest points is when we are offered the elixir.
Yeah.
Ourselves. What is the elixir? Well, it's love. It's compassion. It's understanding our interconnectedness to each other. And we get that when we accept gratitude or we accept compassion and love from others. We are now interconnected in that. And so Leia is teaching Obi-Wan more about his place in the galaxy and the interconnectedness of things through understanding that you need to accept gratitude, or you need to accept help, and you need to accept love and compassion of others so that you too can have love and compassion for others. It's a gift. These things are a gift, and we give them to others so that, they can also have a little piece of the elixir.
And like right now, Obi-Wan is the symbol of hope that Leia carries through into like the rest of her life, basically. And right now he's a man without hope. And it's interesting that we get from The Last Jedi, with Leia puts out the call to the galaxy, like, hey, anyone want to like help us from like imminent doom? And then, in Rise of Skywalker, you get the galaxy shows up to help. And so you sort of ask the question of like, okay, so, what changes? And I guess, there is that sense in which hope is infectious when the people around you are like, oh, I'm excited about this thing. I feel good about it. That spreads and people, there's a magnetism.
And how this happens is that when we accept love from others, we love ourselves a little bit. And that helps us like grow that within ourselves so that we can love others. And this helps us learn to love ourselves because we're willing to accept love from others.
It's so good. Yeah.
This is when the Padme connection actually happens is after he rescues her from the fall. You remind me of someone. She was fearless. He says to her, you remind me of someone. She was fearless and stubborn. She was a senator, a leader. In my heart, this just feels so good to hear somebody talk about Padme in the show. They get surprised by Reva, and he grabs his lightsaber like he's ready to do the violence. He's ready to fight her.
Yeah, at first you're like, oh, shoot, like we're going straight to the lightsaber duel, but he's not ready.
Leia, you hide. This is very expected of the hero. Like, I've got to fight my demons. Before the lessons in gratitude, there was the fall and the force catch. The force catch, which is a callback to her saying, hey, you're a Jedi. Like, make me float, make me float. And this is the start of the building of their trust that he saves her from the fall, and also that he answers her call when she needs help. Right? So this all leads in. This is all foreshadowing to a new hope, and that this is the start of that build of that trust that is required for her to reach out and say, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, it's fate. It's the Force. Yeah.
He grabs his lightsaber. He's like, I'm ready to do the violence. And Bell Hooks talks a lot about this. I highly recommend everyone read The Will to Change. And she talks about how men and little boys are taught by our patriarchal society, by our dominator culture, that to be a man, to be out there, you have to do violence. You're going to be doing violence at any point in your life. And you have to be always ready to be violent. And
yeah, it's rough. It's, little boys are given BB guns at 10 or 12 and they're, they get bullied, it's man up, fight back. You have to fight back. You have to kick their ass. There's all these just sort of, things that we take for granted. That's how it's supposed to be. And it doesn't fix a thing, unfortunately.
And violence is a path of destruction and cannot exist and coexist with love. You can't love something and commit violence against it. And this violence, you can't express that you're in pain. You say, like, I have to fight this because it's the only tool that we've given many people in our society. I have to fight this because this is the only tool I think I have. I only have my lightsaber, right? And it's because we're not given alternative paths and tools to change the conversation or look at things in a new way. Because you're told you can't feel things and you can't, feel pain. You can't be sad. You can't cry because that's not a manly thing to do or not a good thing to do. You can't be sad over the fact that you killed your brother. Oh, no. It's actually worse. Lord Vader will be pleased. Anakin Skywalker is alive, Obi-Wan.
Yeah. And she says, as a reminder, she says, and he's been looking for you for a long time. So, banging that drum that this is, in some way you helped cause this, or at least from his motivational point of view.
Not only did he not die, but he is a tool of the dark side, and so is causing more pain and hurt across the galaxy. But he is worse than being dead. He is hurting others. He is out there in the galaxy creating more violence. Lord Vader, who hurt all those younglings. Now, through the tool of Reva, through the surrogate of Reva, he has taken his own child by accident or by the will of the Force to bring Obi-Wan back to hurt Obi-Wan. We get surprised, Grand Inquisitor, don't stop me. Stab. And he falls to the ground. Okay, let's talk about if the Grand Inquisitor is dead. He's not dead.
Yeah, everybody is like, oh wait, they're like retconning Rebels. It's like, this is like No Way Home, where Tobey Maguire's like, I've been stabbed before.
Also, we literally saw Fennec get shot in the stomach and have her whole stomach replaced by mechanical parts. The Grand Inquisitor will be fine. And we also saw Fennec, not months before this, lose her entire stomach area and have it replaced by droid parts. They have back-to-tanks. They have robot parts. It now makes me think Trilla might be alive.
I think so. Yeah, I think seeing this episode made me think that Trilla might be alive, because literally in this scene, she's talking about Darth Vader who bathed in a river of lava and or I think of Star Killer and the Force Unleashed. He sort of got stabbed by Palpatine and thrown out an airlock, or stabbed by Vader and thrown out an airlock. And you're like, oh my god, he's dead, but. Yeah, no. The dark side's whole thing is that they have the best medical insurance in the galaxy. So,
and this is just a very fundamental point about Star Wars, that you can never kill the darkness inside of you. Think about the Force. There's always light and darkness. It's like a yin yang. Wherever there is light, there is darkness. Wherever there is darkness, there is light. And so, you can never kill that aspect of yourself that is dark. It's like the yin and the yang. There will always be light and always be dark. And you yourself are made up of light and dark. And you yourself are in the middle. That's the third point. That's the triangle again. You are the thing that is between selflessness and selfishness. And you have to navigate your truth, yourself, between the two. You yourself, you have to balance those two things with the self. This is all from Obi-Wan's perspective. You can never kill the darkness.
Yeah, Obi-Wan says to Yoda in Revenge of the Sith, he says, I can't kill Anakin. So all the things you're saying are very funny in light of that line. It's all laid out there. It's, yeah. They kind of know what they're doing. Yeah.
He himself knows that Anakin is a part of him. He is his friend. He is his brother. He is another part of him. Like they're mirrored even in their fight in in Revenge of the Sith.
It's almost like they call to each other, right?
He was his brother, his mentor, his master. And now he's his enemy. Mm-hmm. And now he's just still out there. He committed violence against him. He cut off his legs. He cut off his arms. And yet Vader is still out there. And he left him for dead. The thing is, you can never kill that darkness in you. And Reva reminds him of that by saying, you cannot hide. You cannot escape him. You have to process this. This is Star Wars. This is Star Wars. So he escapes. He realizes he can't use violence. So he escapes. This is a really important realization for Obi-Wan. He realizes he can't kill he realizes you can't kill a piece of yourself. As dark as it is, you can't kill it. And then we flash to Vader in the tank in case you didn't get the message that they're connected. Yeah, it calls to you because you have unfinished business. And so it's going to chase you. It's like Robert Bly talks about in the little book on the human shadow, about how our shadows, our darkness, the things we haven't dealt with, our shadow are like a garbage bag, a smelly garbage bag that we drag behind us. And the more we ignore it, the bigger it grows and the smellier it becomes. It's kind of like the metaphor people say, when you get into a relationship, you have to accept the person's baggage. And you kind of just hope that somebody knows how to pack their baggage correctly so that they know what's in there. So it's not something that comes out randomly. But this is really important because only by looking through our darkness, our shadow, the things we haven't confronted, can we truthfully become a whole person and bring that into ourselves as somebody who we understand that darkness. We understand the things that have happened to us, and only then can we become whole. And that's what we're going to get as part of this with the rest of Kenobi. I'm so excited. And we'll be back later on this week for another Kenobi episode. I'm hoping that these will be coming out Fridays after the Wednesday Kenobi episode. And I'm really, really excited to do this with you, Alex.
Thank you. Yeah, it was very fun. I love the show and I love talking about it. So,
where can people find you if they are looking for you online?
Mostly on Twitter at Alex J. Kane.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. We look forward to having you back. Alex, where can people find you if they're looking for you online? Awesome. Take care, everyone. Cheers. Awesome. Take care, everyone. Until next time. Cheers. Thank you for listening to What the Force. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host. Our intro and outro is orchestral music by Christy Carew for What the Force. We have a Patreon at patreon.com/whattheforce. We would like to thank all our patrons, especially those who love What the Force, Melody, Night Huntress, In Wild Space, Felicia, How Rude, Anna Perez, Neil, Joe Allen D, Christian Luca, Josh Johnson, Scott C, and Susan. Make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube or leave a 5-star review on iTunes or other pod apps. It helps others find the show. Check out our other channel on YouTube, What the Fiction. You can connect with us on Twitter at WT Force Show, What the Force Podcast on Facebook, or our website, whattheforce.ca, and our Discord. Links are in the liner notes. Feel free to reach out and start a conversation. Cheers.